And connects to what you were doing previously with volume, but the only difference is that this is volume with rational links. So remember, rational numbers include decimals and fractions, so that's really the only difference today than what you were doing previously. So some of these numbers just have decimals or fractions, which is fine because as long as you can convert the fractions to the decimals, it makes it a lot easier for you. So we're going to use our understanding of finding the volume of rectangular prisms to solve problems with rational numbers. Here, we have a rational number. Hopefully you can identify which one is the rational number. But what we're going to use is the same formula. In case you forgot what the formula was, you can check in the notes previously, or you can actually go into your reference sheet that we have been using for the past few days, your star reference sheet that you should have a copy of in your binder, and you're looking at rectangular prisms. Remember, this is volume is equal to base times height. Remember, I told you this big B means something different than these little b's. So big B actually has two dimensions, length and width. So this is volume is equal to base times height, or volume is equal to length times width times height. So we're going to use that information to solve here. So we know that the formula is volume is equal to base times height. Here, we need to figure out what the base is. So remember, the base is basically what the shape is sitting on. In this case, this is what we're sitting on, this little section at the bottom. So our base to plug in these values is going to be volume is equal to 9 times 6, and then our height is how tall it is. In this case, it is 4.5. So now, in order to solve this, all you have to do is get 9.6, or not 9.6, 9 times 6, and then multiply it by 4.5. So we should already know that 9 times 6 is going to give us 54. So you just have to do 54 times 4.5 to get your answer. So 5 times 4 will give us 20. 5 times 5 gives us 25. Then we have 26, 27. When we're multiplying, and now the next place value, I'll add a 0. So I have 4 times 4, which will give me 16. And then 4 times 5, 20, plus 1 more, 21. So I should have done this in a different color so it was easier for you to see it. But here, I'm adding 0, 6, 7, 2 plus 1 plus 1, and then 2 by itself. So we get the volume of 2,430. But remember, whenever we were actually solving this, we had one number that was after the decimal. So in our answer, we have to have one number after the decimal. So it is not 2,430. We should be getting 243. So remember, when we were doing this, we have to pay attention to what the units are. In this case, it is centimeters. So that means the volume of this rectangular prism is volume is equal to 243 centimeters cubed, because we were multiplying 3 lengths or units versus just multiplying 2. So you're going to follow the same process for this next shape right here. Volume is equal to base times height, knowing that you're paying attention to this two numbers as the base, and this is the height of the shape. So you have to plug in those values and solve for the volume. This next shape has a fraction, but we are following the same basic rules. We're going to use the base that we can find right here at the bottom, and then the height is this number going up the side. So volume is equal to base times height. When we're plugging in our values, it would be good for us to just use the number that we have. In this case, it's 4 1/3 times 12 times 9. So in order to solve this, we are multiplying all three of these numbers. You're going to convert this fraction into a decimal. Hopefully you know what it is. And then you can solve it. Remember, when you find the answer, volume is equal to whatever the answer is. Oh, in this case, it's feet. Feet cubed. So same thing for this one. We have our base that we're going to use, and our height is actually really small here. So we'll use volume is equal to base times height. Volume is equal to our three values. Our base is 8 times 8. Then our height is 1 and 1/2. So you should solve for the base first, 8 times 8, and then multiply whatever this number is as a decimal to find your official volume. Make sure you're paying attention to the units too. The next part of this lesson is practicing applying volume to real world situations below. So a closed dresser is the shape of a rectangular prism. The dresser has a height of 3 feet, a width of 8 1/5 feet, and a depth of 2 feet. How many cubic feet will the dresser hold? So what do we already know? So we know that it has a height of 3 feet. We know it has a width of 8 and then 1/5. As a decimal, I'll just write it as a decimal so it's easier for me to type it. 3 feet. And then a depth, in this case, I'm just going to use length. And it's going to be 2 feet. So when we're solving this, we know for a fact that the most important thing in here is the numbers, for sure, and then what type of shape it is, because if we don't know what shape it is, it's going to be harder for us to actually use the right formula. It tells us it's a rectangular prism, so we can go here and find the volume of a rectangular prism is base times height. Knowing that base times height is actually our two numbers together. So to plan and work, we know volume is equal to base times height. We plug in our numbers. Volume is equal to, let's say, 8.2 times 2, and then we multiply that by 3. So once you find all of that, we know that 2 times 3 is 6. So then 8.2 times 6 will give us our answer. 6 times 2 is 12. Then we have 8 times 6, which will give us 48, plus one more will be 49. Another thing for us to remember all the time is that if we have one number after the decimal, our answer has to have one number after the decimal. So our final answer should be 49.2 feet cubed. And if you haven't so far, please get in the habit of actually circling your final answers, because it's easier for you to find them later, it's easier for me to find them later. It just makes it easier for all of us. So we're using the same basic principle of what I know, what I need to know, plan and work, etc. So I didn't go over I need to know because I already had it written down for you, but I need to know is basically what is the question asking us? How many cubic feet will the dresser hold? In this case, the cubic feet that the dresser is going to be able to hold is 49.2 feet cubed. So now what you're going to use is the same theory. A shipping crate is advertised to hold 24 cubic feet. If the base of the shipping crate has an area of 3 feet square feet, then what is the maximum height of the shipping crate? So we need to know what the maximum height of the shipping crate is, but what we do know is that the volume is 24 cubic feet. we also know the base has an area of 3 square feet. So then we need to figure out the height for the shipping crate. So this might be hard for us to kind of visualize. So what I'm going to do is try and draw this picture. So here we know that the base, this section right here, is 3 square feet. So they already have the area for the base. All we're missing is the height. So what we have is volume is equal to base times height. They already told us the volume. Instead of writing volume, I'll write the actual number. We already know that the volume is 24 cubic feet. So this is 24 is equal to the base, which is 3 already, they told us, and then the height. So this is basically a one-step equation. We know that we need to isolate the variable. We don't know what the height is yet, but in order to isolate it, what we can do is divide both sides by 3. So here, we would get 3h divided by 3, which will give us h by itself. Now, we get 24 divided by 3, which will give us the height. So, the answer to this problem here is height is equal to 8 feet. In this case, we don't have to put squared, we don't have to put anything else, because that was just the height that we were missing right here. That was our mystery. So now what you're going to do is use basically everything that you did so far to answer this question. A music stereo is packed in a box shaped like a rectangular prism that measures 18.5 inches by 32 inches by 12.2 inches. What is the volume of the box? So they gave you these 3 numbers. You don't necessarily know which one's the length, the width, or the height, or the base or the height, but you do know that all 3 of these numbers are going to be used. So what you need to know is what is the volume of the box. When you're planning or working, you use volume is equal to base times height, knowing that that base is actually going to be your length and your width. So share your work on this problem and you should be good. Once you're done solving this, you can start working on your homework. If you still have time,